It's kind of hard when you follow a keynote speaker, so we're going to give it all due justice to give you the best ticket to safety. And in doing so, I want you to know that LP is in my blood. It started in my blood when I saw my first shoplifter conceal and steal merchandise. I was hooked. And it's still there 31 years later. Once you put on that hat, it never goes away. But as we looked at my career and the steps that I took, I thought it would be beneficial to everybody to hear my story and see what I had gone through to get where I was wearing this loss prevention hat, so that you can strategize in regards to where you might want to take yourselves. So it was Christmas, and there are some events that change your world. Your whole perspective changes by one event. Christmas time, and I'm watching some folks. I see this lady, and she takes 10 holiday Barbie dolls from the shelf. She's got this big old black purse. And I'm like, whoo, I got her. She starts concealing. And then over our intercom, I hear, Department 50 to the bakery, Department 50 to the bakery. Well, Department 50 was our emergency call. So I dropped that great apprehension, and I went to our bakery. And in the bakery, I see Maria. And Maria's hand was stuck in the sheeter. Her hand was like a piece of dough through the sheeter. And as I was standing there with her, waiting for the paramedics to come, I said, Maria, what happened? She said, well, I took off this guard piece, and I stuck my hand in here so I could grab a piece of dough, and it ate my hand. So I stood there and comforted her until they came. And when they came, they couldn't take her hand out. They took her and the piece of equipment with them to the hospital. Maria lost her hand. But I want to tell you a little bit about who Maria was. Maria was an old Italian grandmother. She worked in our bakery because she loved to bake. And what she baked was with love, and it was the best bakery products you ever had. But she also came from the home country, and her passion and her tradition was to make pasta. She lost her hand. She could never make pasta for her family again. She could never teach her grandkids that tradition. That incident changed my life. Changed my life that day. So I looked at our loss prevention and said, you know, what are we doing in our world? And at that time, my job responsibilities were to do checklists and audits and to train and to coach people. And everything kept coming back to Maria. How can I teach people that that one day doesn't have to happen to them? Not on my watch. So I started to look at behaviors and addressing things. I started to speak of our senior leaders. I would have my people pick up grapes. And I would say, for every grape, you're saving this company $2 million. So at my Monday morning meeting, I would say, my department saved $52,000. Because that's what we were doing. It was prevention. We looked at different items and different ways to share that information. And with that information and the training and the pieces that were coming out of that and those awareness fairs, we started to reduce our injuries. In so much that it was 70% reduction by talking, by telling that story. Well, that got recognized. And it got recognized by the corporate offices. And of course, I got promoted, which was exciting because now I could tell my story, not just to the location, but to the masses. And here was my experience on my first day when I had gone into the office. There was a piece of tape on the floor. This side was loss prevention. This side was my new safety life. And the safety folks called me things like rat poop catcher, hairnet lady, grape nuts, compliance monkey. And I'm standing here while they're saying, you can't go across this line now. And I'm wondering to myself, what have I gotten myself into? Holy crap, I just want to tell Maria's story and keep people safe. After all, I'm carrying a Barbie backpack, a CPR mask, just like you are. My priorities are life safety, civil liability, and the protection of company assets, just like those of you in this room. This is pretty much what we do in LP. That was what I thought I'd be doing over here. But then I traded in those handcuffs, and I had different tools that I started using. I was carrying a thermometer to take food temperatures. I was carrying a flashlight looking for droppings and pest activity. I had to do hazmat training where I got in this little suit, and I had to go in because our distribution facilities had anhydrous ammonia, which kills people. Had to learn about process hazardous management. We had to take samples through little whirly bags. Yogurt, food samples, foreign objects, and maintain them as evidence. My fire hat changed from marking fire extinguishers and turning and exercising valves to understanding how the systems work. Do you know that in systems that plumbers will actually use pennies to balance the system? That's not safe. Can't allow that to happen. It's a trick of their trade that we had to catch to make sure the system was safe. We have meters, air meters, gas monitors, noise decimeters, time-weighted averages I had to learn about. Did you know that flour has a permissible exposure limit? Flour. Maria in the bakery could have been exposed to flour dust. Holy cow. And face the hair nets and the beard nets. My dog looks pretty good with it, I can say that. And construction, I had to learn prints. I learned about footings on buildings, and I learned that Sikaflex caulk is the right kind of caulk to use so you don't get mold. It really was a new world. It was a lot different than catching those bad guys. Those Barbie dolls seemed like fun. The codes changed as well. We were dealing with CFRs and the food code. And if anybody has ever tried to read those, Shakespeare is easier to read. But I found some help, and that would be in mancon.com. They actually look at the code and write it in real people language. And in the food code in Annex 3, it gives the public reasons and guidelines. Boy, it was helpful to read what it really meant. Those were awesome tools for me to learn this new world. The regulatory complexities were so different as well. There were multiple agencies. It wasn't just police departments and FBI and fire. It was FDA and USDA and FSIS and APHIS, NEHA. It was NIOSH, OSHA, MIOSHA, CIOSHA. You didn't know where to start. You had federal regulation. Then you had state regulation, which could go above the federal regulation. And then even in the food code, you would have county level regulation. So that in Columbus, Ohio, your 3-compartment sink had to be 6 inches away from the wall. How do you manage that? How do you keep that all straight? Well, there were some tools, and that was Safety BLR and Keller Online. To this day, I use these because we have multiple states, and I can easily compare those. But yet, this world, why it seems so different, there were so many similarities on this side of the line. And those similarities were things like my priorities. It was still life safety, civil liability, and the protection of assets. It was also things like investigations. If you can investigate a crime, you can investigate an injury. If you can investigate a crime, you can find pests. You just need to know what to look for, and your investigative techniques may be a little bit different, but it's the same process and the same process of documentation. The control of evidence that I learned over here was the same way that I handled those little sample bags to control that evidence. The same with discovery. I learned that here. I might practice it a little bit more here now because some of it is really brand damaging and people sensitive. I also learned how to manage cases. All of those were the core, the template, the foundation that helped make this world successful.